body or in spirit, and join us in singing hymn number 188 from the gray hymnal, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, number 188.
Good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Founded in 1865, we are a liberal religious voice grounded in community, centered on justice, and lifted by love. I am Barbara Lynn, a lay worship leader, and it is my pleasure to greet you and invite you into our circle where no one is turned away. No matter who you are or how you found your way to us, whether this is your first time or your 1000th, if you are seeking sanctuary, you have come to the right place. If you are new to us this morning, thank you for joining us. And for newcomers in the live stream, we hope you will find the courage to introduce yourself in the chat so others may greet you. And please consider filling out our newcomer survey to be found at UUAA.org/newcomer survey to help us get to know you better. And for those of you here in person, we cordially invite you to a welcome session right after the service. Friendly folks will be waiting for you in the Redmond room, which is through these double doors and to your left as you enter the hallway. And unlike our crowded, noisy social hall, the Redmond room provides a small, intimate setting where you can ask questions and learn more about our faith. I would like to bring to your attention an upcoming event. Melanie DeMore, a renowned 3-time Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, and activist, will lead a community sing here at UUAA next Sunday, March 16th, from 3 to 5 p.m., hosted by the Ann Arbor Threshold Singers. All are welcome to this free event. And for those of you unfamiliar with Melanie DeMore, she is, quite simply, not to be missed. As we move more deeply into our time together, let us draw strength from each other. This time of centering is one of my favorite moments in our Sunday service. We have gathered, we have sung together, and now we settle in to remember who we are and why we are here. In these chaotic times, the religious calendar has entered a season of relinquishment and atonement. Ramadan and Lent have begun. This year, these spiritual practices coincide not just with each other, but more seriously, with an avalanche of loss and bereavement. Something precious is being stolen from us, and the question lingers, after we are stripped of everything, what will be left? What will we have to offer up? Let us take courage from the words of Adrienne Rich, who writes, "My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed. I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world. Come, let us worship together in community and in hope."
Rituals help us make meaning. They bind us together. Research shows that when people engage in shared ritual, their heart rates and emotional reactions synchronize, transforming the experience from an individual one into a communal one. Rituals are everywhere, sometimes so deeply embedded in our everyday lives that we don't even notice how these practices enrich our connections to one another and to the world. This is why I love lighting our chalice every Sunday. It is an opportunity to let go of our anxieties and fears, and with intention, come together as one people to celebrate truth, love, action, and peace. In the words of Brian Keeley, "In times of darkness, we stumble towards the tiny flame. In times of cold, we seek the warming fire. In times of repression, we reach for the lamp of truth. In times of loss, we pray for the comforting light. In times of joy, we light a candle of celebration." This morning, I would like to invite Matt and Dawn McCleskey to the chancel to light our chalice. For those of you worshiping from home, I invite you to light a chalice or a candle of your own, and perhaps share your location with us in the chat, or you can just write "chalice lit," that we may be together, if not in body, then in spirit. Together let us say, "We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace." Thank you, Dawn and Matt. So too do we recite the words of our covenant. Ours is not a creedal faith, but a tradition that centers the power of community, that celebrates radical welcome and a fierce commitment to our shared values. So whether you are joining us for the first time or the 1,000th, and you have these words memorized, please join me as we say together, "The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another." Almost a year ago, my dad suffered a traumatic brain injury as a result of a fall. Thankfully, he's fully recovered now, but in those first few days and weeks afterwards, we faced a lot of uncertainty. I'm one of a blended family of 6 step-siblings, but I'm the only one that lives in Michigan. But my brothers and my 3 stepsisters all flew in from various corners of the country to offer support and love. We self-identify as the Brady Bunch. It's the name of our group chat. And that was the first time we were together, all of us, since before COVID. It was a long time. We laughed and we cried. We teased my dad about the bald spot on his head from the surgery. We shared stories about our children and our lives. We played card games. We cooked together. Everything else just fell away. all that day-to-day stuff that takes up so much space. We showed up for one another. We were the best versions of ourselves at the worst moment because we were together. Our history is rich with examples of our deep capacity for altruism and compassion. For every rich executive seeking access to private firefighters to protect only his own property at any price, yes, this actually happened during the Los Angeles fires, there are countless others helping neighbors, rebuilding their communities, and healing together. When we are faced with loss or scarcity, how do we hold on to what matters? Our story for all ages this morning offers a lesson in friendship and kindness as we meet a child who finds a way to be a helper even as she experiences unthinkable loss. Lubna and Pebble, written by Wendy Mador, illustrated by Daniel Igneus. Lubna's best friend was a pebble. It was shiny and smooth and gray. Lubna found it on the beach when they arrived in the night. Then she fell asleep in Daddy's salty arms. When Lubna opened her eyes, it was morning. They had landed in a world of tents. Lubna clutched Daddy's hand and gripped her pebble. Somehow, she knew they'd keep her safe. In a big white tent, Lubna found a felt tip pen. She drew a happy face on her pebble. "Hello, Pebble," whispered Lubna. Pebble smiled back. Lubna told Pebble everything about her brothers, about home, about the war. Pebble always listened to her stories. Pebble always smiled when she felt scared. "I love you, Pebble," Lubna said with a sigh. Then the winter arrived. The winds began to blow. The tents began to flap. Daddy said, "Come close, I'll keep you warm." But Lubna was worried. What if Pebble gets a cold? "That must never happen," said Daddy. He went and found a shoebox and a tea towel. "Thank you," Lubna grinned. Then she put Pebble to bed and kissed it goodnight. Soon, a little boy arrived. At first, he had no words, just blinks and sneezes and stares. "This is my best friend, Pebble," Lubna said. The little boy coughed and sneezed, then smiled. "Hello, Pebble. My name's Amir." Lubna and Amir became friends. They played hide and seek underneath the stars. But at bedtime, Lubna whispered to Pebble, "You are still my best friend." One day, Daddy was beaming. "We are leaving. We have found a new home." Lubna felt happy, then sad. Amir cried. That night, Lubna couldn't sleep. She asked Pebble what to do. Pebble didn't answer. But by the morning, Lubna knew. Lubna gave Amir the shoebox with Pebble and the pen. "What do I do if Pebble misses you?" asked Amir. "Draw the smile back on," said Lubna. "And what do I do if I miss you?" "Tell Pebble all about it," Lubna said. Amir nodded and held the shoebox tight. Goodbye, Pebble, Lubna whispered. Hello, Pebble, Amir said. The end. And now, before we move more deeply into this time of worship and reflection, we bid farewell to the youngest among us as they follow their adult leaders out of the sanctuary to their lower level gathering spaces. Please join me in singing This Little Light of Mine with love and tenderness as we conclude the time for all ages.
It is well to remember, as our story for all ages reminds us, that at a time of mounting losses, we still have much to offer and much to give. When we have lost everything, when we have been stripped to the bone, what we salvage in the wreckage becomes the purest of gifts. Here we come to another of my favorite parts of the service, as we turn to our weekly offering and remind ourselves once again why we are here and who we are. With our gifts, we act mindfully out of generosity and hope. This is spiritual practice as communal act. We do this together, for each other, with intention and out of love. Today's offering will go to the programs and ministries of this congregation, and we have made it easy for you to give. You may text UUAA to 73256 or visit uuaa.org/giving and select weekly offering for the fund. And if you're here in person, you may turn to the tried and true and drop your cash or check donations into the baskets as the ushers make their rounds. However you give, thank you for your generosity. I invite the ushers to please come forward as this morning's offering will be gratefully given and received.
We were there in the woods by the water, left our packs up against that willow tree, dove right in, keeping just what we were born with, and our memories, knowledge, and our dreams. And as I swam away from our possessions, I imagined they were gone forevermore. And for once, I was glad that all I treasured would still be with me as I reached the other shore. Let me dive into the water, leave behind all that I've worked for, except what I remember and rusted ledges. I will never hear that old guitar again. These four walls are only in my memory, and these stone steps rise to nothing in the air. So one last look, and I'm headed for the river to wash my hands and try to say this prayer. Let me dive into the water, leave behind all that I've worked for, except what I remember and believe. And when I stand on the farthest shore, I will have all I need. And when my time to live this life is over, I tip my hat as I think about that swim, and how all the things that make a life worth living only come to those who dive right in. So let me dive into the water, leave behind all that I've worked for, except what I remember and believe. And when I stand on the farthest shore, I will have all I need. It's all I need. Let me dive into the water. It's all I need.
Thank you. As our ushers now come forward, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit. And as we prepare to dedicate our offering, let us hold in our hearts the message of the lovely song we have just heard. When we are stripped of everything, if we cling to what we remember and what we believe, we will have all that we need. Together, let us say, to the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you. Please be seated.
In our story today, Lubna and her father, they travel to a farther shore. And it's implied in the story that they're migrants, that they have left behind a life in order to be in some distant and new place. And in this distant and new place, Lubna pours her love and caring into this rock, something to hold her steady and firm in the midst of uncertainty and newness. As I reflected on our Time for All Ages this week, it reminded me that when I was 5 or 6 years old, a family friend who I adored, gave me this little pink stuffed mouse. And I loved this mouse, partly because I loved the family friend who gifted it to me. But like Lubna, I also poured my love into this little mouse. I would tell the mouse everything, my excitements and joys, my dreams, my worries and fears, all of it. And decades later, the little mouse is still with me, heavily worn down and looking quite aged, but he lives in my office, and so if you're ever in my office, you can ask to meet my mouse. We have several Willie Nelson callbacks in today's service, but my mouse is named after Willie Nelson. I'm not even sure why. Leave it to a 5-year-old's imagination. So for our time of shared meditation and silence today, I wanted you to bring to mind in that silence to imagine and recall someone or something that has been comforting to you, that has held you steady in times when you've needed it. Perhaps like me, it was a stuffed animal or a plushie. Perhaps like Lubna, a pebble or a rock. Perhaps a beloved person, grandparent, friend who's no longer with us. Whoever or whatever it may be, I want to invite you to recall that someone or something that has lent you a comforting presence. And in bringing that comforting presence to mind, what might you want to get off your chest, take off your shoulders, and share? Perhaps about the times we're living in, perhaps about its uncertainties and demands, perhaps longings or needs, perhaps hopes and dreams, perhaps fears and frustrations. Like Lubna, let us take some internal time to notice what's been up with us, perhaps burdening us, and share those burdens with the universe. If you would, I invite you now to join me in a time of shared silence and reflection.
Please remain seated and join us in singing hymn number 1012 from the Teal hymnal, When I Am Frightened, hymn 1012. When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share
What does learning to love, holding true to love, look like and feel like in a time when so much is being given up? So this season, this week that we're in, this time that we're in, marks an atypical coinciding of two important traditions, Ramadan in the Islamic tradition and Lent in the Christian tradition. Ramadan representing a time of fasting. I've lived in the Middle East as Ramadan is being commemorated, and it's almost like an inversion of day and night, fasting during the day, and then evenings when the fast is broken are a time for being with friends and loved ones and carrying on until late into the night. Yet in that inversion of day and night, that changing of one's biorhythm and schedule, you're reminded that we're not living on our own personal time, but in that tradition on God's time, on the time of something greater than ourselves, something transcendent, something sacred, something holy. It's a time of remembering. Now, many of you know I did not grow up Christian, so I have to look up things like Lent. But as I did so and reminded myself of some of the traditions of Lent, 40 days, a period of 40 days, which started this past Wednesday, and those 40 days are supposed to reflect the scriptural story of Jesus being in the desert for 40 days, fasting and praying. By the way, don't try that on your own. Us ordinary people can't survive without food for 40 days. But that symbolic giving up of something for a time becomes an opportunity for spiritual reflection. What was the role of the thing in your life, the thing that you've paused or given up? And in addition to reflection, it's a time of reprioritization, of remembering that other things come first. Other things come before these temporal, these ephemeral things in the Christian tradition, God or the holy or the sacred. I want to take a little bit of time to reflect on these two things today, some spiritual reflection and then also the theme of reprioritization. A spiritual reflection on giving up and or what's been giving up. Even as we are in this season of Ramadan and Lent, it's impossible not to notice on a daily basis the things that are changing, the things that are being given up, the things that are being rolled back. Every single day seems to bring some new announcement that, at least in me, evokes a feeling of, this too. It's been such a dissonant time in general that I've been noticing how attached I am, even if I think I'm not, but I am attached to our culture's story of progress. The cultural myth that we are a part of, surrounded by, that the journey of humanity is one of continual and unfolding progress, especially about the issues I care most about. So much is being lost or given up. It's hard to hold on to the great American myth of continual progress, and even as it's difficult, I find my insides bargaining with myself. This dialogue occurring around the lines of, but the losses are temporary. We will gain back the ground that's being lost somehow. I don't know how, but somehow. And yet I don't actually know that. It's quite possible that the losses are not going to be gained back. Eco-theologian Michael Dowd, if you've been in the seminar that I'm teaching, year-long seminar I've been teaching this year, Michael Dowd is one of the writers and thinkers we've looked at closely. And he's a Michigander. He lived in Michigan prior to his death. He calls this desire to believe in possibility and hope, even when you don't actually know that that's what's going to happen. He calls it hopium, a version of hope that's almost like an addictive opioid, calling us back to the addictive habit over and over again, keeping us stuck potentially because we keep going back and needing more of the fix, even though we're just going around in a circle. What Michael Dowd usefully helps me understand that is that hope is a wish. It's something I'd like to see happen. It's an aspiration that may or may not come true. And in being that, it is ephemeral. It's not something solid. In the Christian tradition of Lent and in Ramadan as well, the goal is to give up a thing, something, recognizing that all things are ephemeral, temporary, illusory, as a way of focusing on something more solid, that which is transcendent, the very ground of our being in those two traditions, God. Which leads to a beautiful wondering. What is that deeper ground of being for us Unitarian Universalists who don't necessarily, all of us, believe in a concept of God? If hope is a wish that something may or may not, around something that may or may not happen, what is the deeper thing that might anchor us, that might ground us, that might hold us true and fast? I mentioned last November, shortly after our national elections, the concept of spiritual warriorship. It's a notion that exists in a variety of spiritual traditions, including indigenous traditions and within Buddhism. And Buddhism, the version that I'm most familiar with is the Shambhala Tibetan Buddhist tradition, that version. And I want to introduce you to share with you some of Joanna Macy's very recent writing. She's now 95. Can you believe that? So Joanna Macy, another eco-thinker, ecologist and spiritual thinker, who just published this in January about the Shambhala warrior prophecy. Now, this is an ancient prophecy. It's over 1,200 years old, 9th century thereabouts, and this is Joanna Macy's, in her own words. It's a modern retelling of it, although more traditional translations of this prophecy exist. So in this modern retelling that Joanna Macy just released, her words, quote, there comes a time when all life on earth is in danger. In that time, great powers have arisen, barbarian powers, as they're called, and although they waste their wealth in preparation to annihilate each other, they have much in common. And among the things they have in common are weapons of incredible destructive power and technologies that could lay waste to the world. It's just at this point, when the future of all beings hangs by the frailest of threads, that the kingdom of Shambhala emerges. Now, you can't go there because Shambhala is not a place. It exists in the hearts and in the minds of the Shambhala warriors, the spiritual warriors. And you can't tell whether someone is a spiritual warrior just by looking at them, because they wear no uniform or insignia. They have no banners to show which side they're on, no barricades on which to climb to threaten the enemy, or behind which they can rest and regroup. These spiritual warriors don't have any home turf. There's only the terrain of the barbarian powers for them to move on, to regroup and use. The dangers facing us are not fashioned by some deity or by some extraterrestrial force or by some preordained fate. These dangers we are facing are created by our relationships, our habits, and our choices. The dangers we are facing are created by our relationships, our habits, and our choices. Now, the time comes when great courage is required of the Shambhala warriors, of these spiritual warriors, moral courage and physical courage. That is because they're going right into the heart of the barbarians' power to dismantle their power and dismantle their weapons in every sense of the word. As they make their way into the pits and citadels where the armaments are made, so are they also entering the corridors of power where decisions are made. Now heed this. The Shambhala warriors know these weapons can be dismantled. That is because they are, in Sanskrit, manomaya, an old word that means mind made. Made by the human mind, they can be unmade by the human mind. The dangers facing us are not fashioned by some deity or by an extraterrestrial force or by some preordained fate. These dangers are created by our relationships, our habits, and our choices. Spiritual warriors arise when the needs are great, and they have two tools. One is compassion. The other is insight into the radical interdependence of all phenomenon. You need both. Now, this is interesting. Two solid things that spiritual warriors can hold on to as tools. Now, other kinds of warriors, soldiers, let's say going into the Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, they have their own distinct tools. So does the spiritual warrior. And we're told that the tools of the spiritual warrior are compassion, which is another word for love, or an expression of love, and insight. Now, this should sound very Unitarian Universalist to you, I hope. The primary tools of transformation, of growth, of the spiritual warrior are love and insight. Both matter, both working together. Joanna Macy says that compassion, love, is the fuel. We use compassion, we use our tenderness, our love, and our caring in a couple of ways. First, directed towards ourselves. In the Tibetan tradition, this is called turning towards our own basic goodness, recognizing our own humanity, that we get things wrong, we make mistakes, but we also have basic goodness side by side with our fallibility and our humanity. The more we get in touch with, we direct compassion towards ourselves, recognize the goodness within ourselves, we're able to recognize the goodness in others. Through that expanding sense of compassion and love, recognizing our own goodness, recognizing the goodness in others, we're able to then meet the world as it is. We're able to meet the pain, the suffering, the confusion, the uncertainty that exists all around us. For when we're grounded in our heart center, when we're grounded in love and in compassion, we are not timid. We're not afraid to meet the needs of the world or our own needs. Now think about it. It's because we care, it's because of love that we rally for justice, that we foment change, that we sign petitions, that we run for office, that we support institutional and cultural transformation. All of that is grounded in love and in caring. Side by side with love, we're told insight matters, but it's not just any kind of insight. It's not intellectualism for the sake of intellectualism. The quote was, "Insight into the radical interdependence of all things." what another Buddhist teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, calls interbeing. A Tibetan teacher, Chogyal Rinpoche, says that when our insight is focused on our interdependence, the connections between us and everything that exists, starts to become clear. We can see the web-like tendrils that bind everything to everything else. Quote, "We know that life is not a battle between good people and bad people, but that the line between good and evil runs through every human heart," end quote, including our own. And the more that we get in touch with our sense of interdependence with everything that exists, we can begin to see how that goodness, that sense of possibility, exists both in us and in everything around us, but also how the causes for suffering and hardship exist not just around us, but also within us. Insight starts with each and every one of us in that way, recognizing that we're an intricate part of a cosmic web, the very cosmic fabric of the universe. And by working on ourselves, by strengthening ourselves, by learning and growing ourselves, we strengthen the fabric of all creation, of our society, of our nation, of humanity. By the way, this is a very humanistic way of thinking, even as it's captured in Buddhism. That by learning and growing, by improving ourselves, we can be a greater force of good. We're more connected to goodness all around us. This line of Buddhist warrior thinking goes on to say that, no change, no positive change, no act of good is too small. The smallest of actions, the smallest good we can do, ripples through all those tendrils of connection. It ripples through the web in ways that we can't always see, Chogyal Rinpoche says, but that we can trust is there and has an impact. Compassion and love in this way, they fuel us, they energize us, they define how we show up. Insight, in turn, then, guides our actions. Insight into our interdependence, our interconnectedness, guides our actions. It leads us to the personal and collective actions that we can meaningfully take. Love and insight working hand in hand together. Now, this Shambhala warrior prophecy from the 9th century, 1,200 plus years ago, not only predicts the time that we are living in, but it provides us the spiritual warrior tools that we need, the solidity and firmer grounding that we need, that it's important not to forget. Why? Because all around this planet, including in our nation, authoritarianism and fascism relies on overwhelm and overload, confusion, and evoking exhaustion. These are the tools of authoritarianism and fascism that are intentionally designed to erode one's capacity to defend democracy. They are tools that are designed to drive you and me to despair and resignation. Now, this is so tricky because I hear in circles, as people are processing the time we're living in, monologues and internal thinking that reflects a certain level of resignation, and we have to be watchful for this. Thinking along the lines of, the people who voted in a certain way, they too have to experience the harm that's occurring. They need to feel the impacts of the choices that they made. So I'm going to just rest a little bit and let them absorb and let it sink in what the choice they've made means for them. But that's resignation. That's stepping back, right? And it's not the only way. We can wind up with this overwhelm and overload feeling as if nothing I could, as one person, could possibly do will matter. I can't save everything, so how can I even save something? But this is what these authoritarian and fascist regimes around the globe consistently rely on. They want you to take a seat back. They want you to step onto the sidelines. They want you to give up and stop trying and believe that anything you try to do will make no difference, which is why they try to overload and overwhelm the news cycle and the system all around us. Armed with the warriors, the spiritual warriors' tools of love, of compassion, and insight, a warrior, a spiritual warrior, is always able to do something. We're also told in these warrior traditions that you don't need to go looking for your warrior's work. It doesn't reside in Washington, D.C. or Lansing. It is right here where your life exists. It will find you. The warrior work that is yours to do will find you. Now, what that requires of us, it requires our openness and paying attention. This is discipline, and it's practice. So in the same way, you don't just sign up for the Marines or the Navy, and on day 2 you're shipped out to sea. There's practice, there's discipline that precedes engagement. Spiritual warriors, the same is true for us. We engage in discipline and practice, and among our disciplines and practices are paying attention and listening deeply for the unique work that is our warrior work to do. And then when it shows up, I can promise you, the narratives are going to come up. I'm tired. The world needs so much from me. I'm exhausted. Well, if I said yes to that, is it even going to make a difference? Don't let those narratives stop you. When your warrior's work shows up, and it will show up, the part of the next practice is to say yes. And you'll feel it in your heart. You'll feel the tug that I think this is right. I think this is for me to do right now. I think this is something good. I think it might make a difference. And then the practice is when you hear that, it'll be a quiet voice, and when you hear that quiet voice, to listen to it and say yes again and again and again. It's a yes that our future generations need from us. Heed and answer that call, knowing that we, each of us, as spiritual warriors, we don't give up. We never give up.
Proud land, we grew up strong. We were wanted all along. I was taught to fight, taught to win. I never thought I could fail. No fight left, or so it seems. I'm a man whose dreams have all deserted. Changed my face, I changed my name, but no one wants you when you lose.
Don't give up, 'cause you have friends. Don't give up, you're not beaten yet.
though I saw it all around, I never thought that I could be affected. I thought that we would be the last to go. It is so strange the way things turn. Drove the night toward my home, the place where I was born on the lakeside. And as daylight broke, I saw the earth, the trees had burned down to the ground. Walk out of here, I can't take anymore. Gonna stand on that bridge, keep my eyes down below. Whatever may come and whatever river's flowing. Moved on to another town, tried hard to settle down. For every job, so many men, no one needs.
Beloveds, join me in a breath and just a moment, take a moment to look around here. A place where you belong, a people whose hearts resonate with your own. Each and every one a spiritual warrior, grounded in love, motivated by insight, dedicated and committed to bringing goodness alive in this world. This is what you are surrounded by. This is what you belong to. This is who you are held by until we are together again. Go in love and peace. Amen.